Hello and welcome back to my channel. I have 5 delicious recipes that will help you save dinner and keep you out of the drive-thru or from ordering expensive takeout or door drop-offs. Recipes for all of these are not only in the video clips but will be included in the description box. We have Mary meat pork chops, 1 pot spaghetti and meatballs, 1 pan meatloaf with vegetables, pizza quesadillas, and lastly, skillet sausage and potatoes. First, we have Mary meat pork chops. You may have heard of the dish called Mary Me Chicken. The chicken's so good that if you make it for the person that you love, it will cause them to drop to one knee and propose on the spot. So I decided to mix things up a bit and do it with pork chops. I have a variety of spices out, ready for this. Salt, pepper, Italian herb seasoning, paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, vegetable broth base, rotini pasta, olive oil, parmesan cheese, and heavy whipping cream. I didn't put a can of fire roasted tomatoes out. I forgot to do that when I was filming that part of it. The recipe calls for sun-dried tomatoes. So either a can of diced tomatoes or sun-dried tomatoes will work for this. I have 1 cup of flour on a plate. I'm adding 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, 2 teaspoons of paprika, smoked paprika if you have it, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 2 teaspoons of pepper. After having said all of this dredge that I'm going to dredge the pork chops in, or if you want to use chicken, you can use chicken. It was way more than what I needed. It was probably double what I needed, and I felt like it was such a waste throwing it away. But I had all of that raw meat in it, so I couldn't keep it. And I had 8 thick pork chops, so I think you could take, if you're doing it with chicken, you could use 4 chicken breasts cut into halves horizontally. And then that would probably be about the same amount of meat as these pork chops. So if you wanted to cut the dredge ingredients in half, I think that you would still have enough. So I dredged the pork chops into the flour and seasoning mixture, and then in my skillet I got a couple of tablespoons of butter and a couple of tablespoons of olive oil and heated them up, and now I am putting the pork chops into the skillet to brown them. For those of you worried about me touching the tongs onto the raw meat and then onto the cooked meat, I am only browning these on the outside, and they are going to go back into the skillet to finish cooking. These are getting nice and brown, and then I'm transferring them over to a plate. You may need to wipe out or wash the pan after this step. I washed the pan because there was so much burned flour in the bottom of it, and I didn't want the taste of that to transfer into my finished dish. So here I am adding some olive oil and a half of a diced onion. I'm going to let that cook for a minute and then add my sauce ingredients. I'm adding a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes. You can add sun-dried tomatoes if you'd like. I'm adding a little bit more garlic powder to this. 2 cups of vegetable stock. You can use 2 cups of chicken broth if you prefer, or especially if you're using chicken with this dish. You can add red pepper flakes to this if you'd like. I left them out. And now I'm putting the chops back into the pan to continue cooking and also putting a lid on the top. I let these simmer on low for about 20 minutes. You can check them with a thermometer, and if the internal temperature is at 145 degrees Fahrenheit or over, then they are done. However, I prefer my pork at about 150 or 155. I'm adding some heavy cream to this. The recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream and adding more seasoning since I added more liquid. So I'm adding some more garlic powder and some more Italian seasoning to this. And also just a titch more onion powder. I'm adding in 2 cups of rotini pasta into the sauce, and then I am going to cover the pan and let it cook on medium low until the noodles are tender. Out of the 15 or 16 one-pot dinner recipes that I've tried and have been working on in the past month, this is the only one I really feel like would have been faster if I had had another pot going with it. So I think from here on out, what I would do is cook the meat and in one pan, and then cook the pasta in a pot, and at the very end when I'm plating up, have the meat and the sauce over the pasta instead of adding the pasta to the pot or the pan. So I feel like I'm contradicting or sabotaging my recipe by saying that, but it would have gone faster if I had had more than one pan for this particular dish. I returned the pork chops back to the pot or the pan, adding more seasonings again, so garlic, onion powder, Italian, and a little bit more cream, kind of smushing everything around here, and put the cover back on the pan until we're ready to eat. The recipe calls for Parmesan cheese to be added at the end, and I decided to leave it out, and I served the Parmesan on the side at the table for those who wanted to put it on their own individual dishes. Some of us like it, some of us don't. But it was there if they wanted it. Now, ready to plate this up. And I am putting a couple of pork chops on a plate with some pasta and then sauce on top of it. Earlier, I had tasted a couple of pieces of pasta and some sauce to check for doneness and also for seasonings. And it was so tasty. I made some steamed green beans to go with this. And here you have Marry Me pork chops, which would be great for a special occasion or dinner party. Here I am trying this, trying a little taste of it before everybody else gets called to the table. And so I took a little bite with some sauce on it, and it was very good. There were no marriage proposals that night, but my husband did say that he would ask me to marry him again. So I take that as a win. Next, we have 1 pot spaghetti and meatballs. And for this dish, I'm going to be using frozen meatballs. I have a 24-ounce jar of spaghetti sauce. I have 2 bags of meatballs that I made and froze, or you can purchase Italian or country frozen meatballs at the grocery store. I have Italian seasoning, garlic powder, sugar, and a half a can of tomato paste. And not pictured is 2.5 cups of beef broth or 2.5 cups of water and 2 teaspoons of beef broth base. I'm adding a half a can or 2 very large tablespoons of tomato paste to my Dutch oven and 2 cups of water. I actually go back and put another half a cup in, so just do that now, for a total of 2.5 cups of water. That was a very American pronunciation of water, wasn't it? About 2 teaspoons of beef soup base, and 1 24-ounce jar of spaghetti sauce. This is the Aldi brand, but any kind you like will do. I'm adding in a few shakes of Italian seasoning, and then also garlic powder, and then a teaspoon of sugar. If you're using a more flavorful spaghetti sauce, you may not need to add any extra seasonings to it. I'm using spaghetti pasta here. You could use penne or rotini if you prefer those. I used a whole box. I broke each handful that I put in into thirds. And like I said, I used a whole box. If you want a saucier pasta, only use 3/4 of a box of pasta. That was a pound. On this night that I was cooking, I have so many distractions and malfunctions with trying to film it, and with comedians or family members who think they're comedians. So I hope this video, or this portion of the video, ends up making sense. At one point, I ran out of storage on my phone, and so my daughter filmed on her phone and then sent me the video that she took. So it was pure chaos this night. Oh, and in trying to free up more storage on my phone, I deleted videos that I haven't uploaded yet, but I was able to get them back, recover them. So everything's good now. So my point is, if I was able to pull off this dinner with all that was going on in my life, you'll be able to certainly do this while helping with homework and taking phone calls and all of the busyness that comes with your life also. I cooked this for about 10 minutes on the stove, and then I put it covered into a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. And here I am adding the meatballs now. I should have added them sooner because most of the time involved was trying to heat them up. So you'll add your meatballs in after you've cooked your pasta for about 5 minutes. And I'm using a thermometer to make sure they read an internal temperature of 140 degrees.
Why do you guys always eat so late? Because we need to make sure the video's perfect.
This cooked in the oven for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I made garlic bread and a simple salad to go with this meal. This was a hearty one-pot spaghetti and meatballs, and your family will love it, as did mine. This fed 4 adults and 1 very hungry pasta-loving baby, and there is enough for another meal. Next is 1-pan meatloaf and roasted vegetables. This is a very satisfying and comforting meal. And you can use your favorite meatloaf recipe for this method of cooking. But I'll quickly show you how I make mine. I have about 1.5 pounds of ground beef, maybe a little bit more. And I'm adding some breadcrumbs to it, maybe 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. I had some cooked diced onion in the refrigerator that I needed to use up, so I put that in. And then I also added a little bit of uncooked diced white onion. You'll see in a little bit here. I added about 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and now I'm adding pepper to taste. Here's that onion going in that I was talking about. Normally when I put onion in a meatloaf, I cook it for 30 seconds to a minute in the microwave in a little bit of olive oil, but I just put this in raw for some reason. Adding garlic powder, and then now a couple of splashes of Worcestershire sauce. I'm adding a little bit of ice cold water, and it's summer in Phoenix, so that had ice in it about 2 minutes before I filmed this. You'll just have to take my word for it. So giving it all a good mix and then forming it into a loaf in a 9x13 pan. I added baby carrots to the pan, And then I cut up half of a really large sweet potato, cutting it into a large dice. Then peeled and diced a couple of potatoes and put that in the roasting pan, and then cleaned up some Brussels sprouts, which I also added to the roasting pan. I didn't add very many Brussels sprouts because I'm the only one who likes them, but you could also add a rough cut onion, or you could add fresh or frozen green beans to this, really whatever you like. I drizzled all of the vegetables with olive oil and then put salt and pepper on everything. And then put this roasting pan into a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven, and it baked for about 45 minutes. And this is what it looked like after 45 minutes in the oven. The vegetables are tender, and I'm just separating them out into bowls to make it easier to serve up. If you like ketchup on your meatloaf, or a sweet and sour sauce with ketchup and brown sugar and Worcestershire sauce, you can add that to the top of your meatloaf, or you can add it to the top of your meatloaf and then put it back in the oven for a couple of minutes, or a few minutes before the baking time is up. We like gravy over our meatloaf, and so I am just using this canned gravy. It's very good. We like it a lot. And so I heated that up in the microwave, and now I am plating up our plates with a piece or slice of meatloaf and the vegetables that each one of us likes, with gravy on top of the meatloaf and a slice of French bread that has been buttered. We love this meal. And it's so easy because once you get the meatloaf and the vegetables prepped, it just cooks for 45 minutes. And I believe if you added an extra potato, that it would feed 6 to 8 people. Next up, pizza quesadillas. For those nights when you don't know what you're going to fix for dinner, everyone's hungry, and you need to get something on the table fast. And I had 6 flour tortillas, a small can of tomato sauce. I didn't even put Italian seasoning or garlic on it, and it tasted great. Cheese, pepperoni, and some sausage that I had cooked and frozen a little bit. We had a little bit left over from a recipe that we had made. So I added a little bit of olive oil to a skillet and turned it on medium. I opened a small can of tomato sauce, and spread that onto the flour tortilla that I laid on the skillet, and then added some of the sausage that was thawed, and some pepperoni and some mozzarella cheese, and topped it with another flour tortilla. And in hardly any time at all, it is golden and toasty on the bottom, and so I flip it very carefully, trying to keep all the contents inside. And then when it is golden and toasty on the bottom, then it's ready, and I put it on a cutting board, cut it into 6ths or 8ths, and voila, dinner is served. So I repeated the process 2 more times, And that was our delicious dinner for that night. You could serve a salad with this, or cucumbers, carrots, radishes, grape tomatoes, sugar snap peas, whatever you want, or just leave it simple and plain. It was delicious, and I think that children would really like this a lot. The whole process took me maybe 15 to 17 minutes. And 3 quesadillas made out of 6 taco-sized tortillas served 2 adults. Last of all, we have sausage and potato skillet with fried eggs on top. This dish and the pizza quesadillas are probably the easiest and fastest out of these 5 different recipes, especially if you have leftover baked potatoes from a meal, or cook the baked potatoes the night before as you're preparing your dinner to use the next night. So I chopped up some leftover onion that I had in the refrigerator. It was probably about a third of an onion. And now I am slicing some beef sausage, or you can use kielbasa, into rounds or coins. I'm taking the potatoes and peeling them. These were baked a couple of hours before. And you could start with raw potatoes, but this just cooks up so much faster if they are baked before you fry them. If you do use raw potatoes, then wait until they're cooked before you put in the sausage and the onion, or otherwise they will get too brown. So I had about 5 or 6 baked potatoes that I peeled and then cut into dices, and then I put some olive oil into a skillet and put them into the skillet, and now I am frying them on a medium heat. I also put salt and pepper on them. When they start to brown a little bit, I add the sausage and the onions, and then you just cook it until the onions get soft and the potatoes get crispy and the sausage gets a little browned. I pulled another skillet out and we cut up the rest of the sausage because we learned that my daughter and son-in-law were going to stop by for dinner. So I ended up using 2 pounds of beef sausage for this and about 6 potatoes. Some of them were a little small, but I would do about a potato per person. A medium-sized potato per person. And then about a third to a half of a diced onion. And salt and pepper. And that's it. Okay, so this is done. And I plated up what I needed to show in a photo and put the rest on a plate. And so now, using the same skillet, I'm going to fry up a couple of eggs over medium. And I put just a little bit of vegetable oil in this and fry up eggs for anybody that wants an egg on top of their sausage potato skillet. Half of us went with eggs, the other half didn't. So fast, easy, and filling. Here you have sausage and potato skillet with or without a fried egg or two on top. And this quantity of ingredients made about 4 to 6 adult-sized servings. Serve it with hot sauce and it's so good. So here we have 5 more delicious one pot, one pan dinner ideas. If you'd like more ideas for one pot dinners, visit the description box and I will include the links to the other videos that I've done on one pot dinners. Recipes like one pot chicken Alfredo, pizza casserole, one pot beef stroganoff, shipwreck casserole, beef lo mein, ham and pineapple pizza casserole, one pot chicken pot pie, and many other ideas. Please consider subscribing to my channel and leave a comment or a like or even a thumbs down if you don't like it. Anything will get me noticed. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.